I love music. I love albums, singles, compilations. I love all formats. CD, vinyl, minidisc, cassette, MP3, AAC, FLAC, ILAC, WAV, AIFF. I love it all. It's all great. And there are a few tracks that really irk me though, really bug me, that I've been wrestling with in my mind. Yeah, wrestling. Did you get it? Did you get it? And I'm going to talk about some of these tracks in a collection of videos. And today's opponent is Anarchy in the UK. This is a compilation that I picked up. It's 1996. Oasis is probably my favourite band at the time. I'd been in the group for about 2 years, and they were exploding all over the country. I think it was just about before Don't Look Back in Anger was coming out. Right there, about March 1996, and the Sex Pistols are reforming. Now, I kind of heard a couple of tracks, Friggin' the Riggin'. I'd seen a video about it in the UK on TV. That's about it. That's all I knew about the Sex Pistols. But I saw an interview they did with some Tony Jabroni on MTV, and it was hilarious. And then I saw clips of outstanding press conference they did at the 100 Club. And then there was talk about them on the news, and it was just, man, the 90s were great. The 90s were just great. So anyway, I was hooked just by these interviews and the little clips they had of some of their music videos. And I went out looking for some Sex Pistol music. Now, back then I was just a dumb kid. I was only with singles and compilations. I didn't really understand the concept of an album. I was just beginning to, because even though I was saying Oasis were my favourite band at the time, all I had was singles. I'd borrowed Definitely Maybe and Don't Look Back in Anger off my uncle. And on this trip, where I ended up buying this, I actually finally bought my own copy of Definitely Maybe. I know, crazy, such a long time later. Anyway, this popped out because of the name Anarchy in the UK, because that song, I'd seen the video of it when they did some reforming, and I just loved the sound of it and the raw energy. And it turns out it was a live session that they did on a show called So It Goes. So yeah, that was the one that stood out to me to look out for. And so there was a section in MVC, if you guys remember MVC, where they have a display, and because Pistols were framing, it was all punk and Sex Pistols. And I didn't even know what their official album was at the time. I always kind of thought maybe it was a Great Rock and Roll Swindle, where I'd heard that on cassette and heard Friggin' and the Riggin', but I didn't know anything. Like I said, I was just a dumb kid. And there was all kind of this kind of stuff on there that were just, as I found out in the end, just bootlegs. But I'll talk about this another time in another video. But now, I just saw this, and because it had Anarchy in the UK and it stood out, and look, and it was a compilation disc, and I thought, well, that might help me get into understanding more about punk and the company they were keeping at the time. And this has The Jam, The Stranglers, Boomtown Rat, Buzzcocks, Sham 69, The Undertones, Blondie, and obviously the Sex Pistols. And it had 3 tracks by the Sex Pistols, Anarchy in the UK, Pretty Bacon, God Save the Queen. So yeah, I picked it up, and I liked what I heard. It was pretty good. But I didn't realize what these tracks actually were until further on down the road that year. Now, I did actually end up picking up a copy of Nevermind the Bollocks later that year, not even realizing that it's their only official album. I just saw it had 1977 on the back, and I thought, because that's the thing. That's what I meant to say about, there was something about these tracks that was kind of different from the get-go, and that's from looking in the booklet. Because I noticed with all the other albums, they're dated 77, 78, 79, but the Sex Pistols, 1989. And I just thought that was strange. Why they were so later on with these publishing rights compared to the others. So that kind of stood out. Plus, I saw a video on Top of the Pops 2, and Pretty Vacant was being played, and I recorded it, and I played it over and over and over. And it sounded much better than the version that's on here. Anyway, like I say, I bought this later on, and I was pleased to find out that, first of all, just show my understanding of how things were. So I had conversions, yeah. And then I bought this, and this is just a live recording, and it's very raw. And I kept playing it, and something about these songs, they're just great songs, and I ended up, liking this. So I kind of see myself now looking back as almost being like a fan that would see them live back in the day before the album came out, because I'd heard more of the raw original sound and the polished studio sound afterwards, if you get what I mean. Anyway. So yeah, I was pleased that I was pleased that Pretty Vacant matched up with the video here, and it sounded unbelievable. And yeah, God Save the Queen was a different mix on here, and Anarchy In The U.K was a different mixes on here. So I kind of thought, well, what happened? Did the band reform in 1989 to record those 3 tracks again or something? It just didn't add up why they were different on here. And it wasn't until, again, later on down the road where I would buy more albums. Well, not albums, it turns out they're bootlegs. And this one started to make things become a little bit more clear, because these are early demos that the band recorded in the summer of 1976. And they have Pretty Vacant and Anarchy In The U.K. that's here, except this one, Anarchy In The U.K. is that this is the correct pitch for some reason. Yeah, pitch problems again. They were slowed down. Anarchy In The U.K. is at a slower pitch on here, and Pretty Vacant is a slow pitcher, both of them. But bootlegs, huh? But the version of God Save the Queen is on here is from another demo session that the band did with other songs in January 77. And both those January and the July sessions all ended up on a bootleg called Spunk, which is a second CD that is on here, confirming where these 3 tracks originated from. But demos, yeah, demos. And why? Why, when it comes to doing a compilation, only the Pistols could be swindled this way, where their competition is getting official singles, and the Pistols are getting their demos put on there. And the funny thing is, EMI. Is this EMI's revenge on the Pistols? A song they wrote about them and all the trouble they caused when they were on their record label, because EMI is their first record label, and they got booted off after a Bill Grundy interview in December 1976. Anyway, realistically, it's licensing issues. I'm sure that's what it is. Because in that summer that year, I did notice a Best Punk Album in the World Era compilation came out. And that had Holidays in the Sun and Pretty Vacant, and I'm pretty sure they were the official Pistols singles. I think I even remember scouting a booklet somewhere in a shop, making sure it said 1977 in the publishing jargon. But yeah, and also there was another one, part 1 obviously was come out a few years earlier, and that had Anarchy In The U.K. and God Save the Queen on there. So with this, it's just licensing issues or something, but I just couldn't believe it. That I don't think the Pistols would have been happy about this. I certainly wouldn't be happy about it. But the funny thing is, in my opinion, the Sex Pistols had the last laugh. Because until I found out that they were demos, I didn't know they were demos. So what I'm saying is they didn't sound substandard compared to all the others. If anything, they blended in quite well. And that's the funny thing, because if the 3 singles off here were on here, they'd have blown them out of the water. They would have. And that's another thing that I kind of thought briefly. I thought, no, that's not possible. They wouldn't do that. You know, they can't be petty. They're not going to say, well, these sound so good, they just don't make the other ones sound crap. We'll just keep them up and give them their demos. No, it's licensing issues. It's gotta be. But yeah, this is such a well-produced rock album. You know, the Pistols were just being themselves. Everyone else copied them. As Glenn Matlock said, there was the Sex Pistols and then there was punk, because it was just all the bands copying them. And, you know, there's stuff on here. I mean, like, what was it? The like Clockwork, is it? And it's just, it's trash, man. It's trash. That's the Boomtown Rats. Like Clockwork. You know, these Pistols, the demo version of Anarchy in the U.K, or God Save the Queen, all 3 of them trumped that song. Unless they're demos. So yeah, how I say, the Pistols had the last laugh. Because once their album came out, because it's so delayed, it just blew all the other albums that had been released prior to that thought they were punk. Blew them out of the water. So, yeah. But yeah, that's a strange one. Do you have anything similar? I'd like to know. It picked up a compilation, and it's got like a band you're really into on it. And then you play it and you find out that they're demos, and yet all the other bands get their official songs on there. I mean, that's why I think, is it only the Pistols that could have been swindled this way? Or is there any other band out there that have been swindled? I'd really like to know in the comments. So, yeah, let me know. And that's going to do it for this video. I will see you in the next one, where I'll talk about another track that really makes me want to, like, start body slamming people on gravelly roads. See you next time.